From the fall of the Roman Empire up until the modern age, the power of Europe's government has been divided between the sovereign, for example the king, and the church. We refer to this traditional government metaphorically as throne and altar. Uniting the two under a common set of rules was Christianity, whose scripture was the foundation of church doctrine and the king's law. Once the Romans weakened themselves and allowed themselves to be conquered by the Germanic tribes to the north, the title of king in most parts of the Western Empire was up for grabs. Germanic tribes such as the Goths, the Vandals, Lombards, and Franks swept in and took control. While battling each other over land and spoils, they built heavy stone fortifications, which later became the much larger and sometimes ornate castles that dot Europe today. Germanic tribesmen organized their fledgling governments according to their own customs. Here are their titles and how to pronounce them. At the top was the king, or der König. More than one king are called Könige. Below the king was the general of his army, called der Herzog. If the king had more than one general, he had Herzöge. Next came the princes who were subject to the king. One is der Fürst. More are called Fürste. Subject to the princes were the regional counts. Just one count is der Graf. More, and you have die Grafen. Finally, the men who fought well were rewarded with knighthood. The knight is called der Ritter, and more than one are called die Ritter. The Germans fought among themselves and other European peoples too, including the Slavs, the Celts, and the remnants of Rome. At times they had to fight to defend against far-off invaders too, like the Huns of Asia and the Moors of North Africa and Arabia. With so many wars, it's not hard to see why they built so many castles and fortifications, many of which still grace Europe's landscape today. As powerful as the Germanic warriors and their kings were, they were never all powerful. Restraining their excesses, the church often checked the ambitions of especially warlike tribes. The church mediated between tribes, and thereby reduced bloodshed. The church was able to do all of this because it too had power. At the top of the church's hierarchy was the Pope. In German he is called der Papst. Few of the Päpste were Germans, which also limited their power. Below the Pope were the archbishops. Der Erzbischof held a seat in a major city and communicated with the other Erzbischöfe regarding major church matters. Under each Erzbischof were the bishops. The bishop, or der Bischof, had his own cathedral, though in the beginning few were as ornate as today's cathedrals, they were large. The plural of bishop is Bischöfe. Did you notice what's similar about the words Erzbischof and Bischof? Under the bishop is the priest, or der Priester. Many priests are just called Priester. Along with the priests were the monks, called der Mönch, Mönche, and the nuns were called die Nonne and die Nonnen. To provide housing and worship space for its ministers and the common people, the church built many beautiful churches all across Europe. Over the centuries, distinct styles developed, depending on local culture and building norms. In Germany, most churches and cathedrals, up through the late 1800s, were built in the Gothic and Baroque styles. A few, however, were built in the Romanesque style, and usually are found in those parts of Germany which were under Roman control. The union of throne and altar did not last. When the common religious beliefs that had cemented it together fractured, the union dissolved. Fürste, or princes, now free from church restraint, unleashed total war in 1618, beginning what would become the 30 Years' War. They ravaged Germany, killing 1/3 of its population, scarring the countryside for decades, and permanently severing their ties with Rome.